Hi. Josh Stein. That is me. That is my name. I am here. Hello. Being a little bit goofy today. Um, I'm from the School of Circling Wizardry, circlingwizardry.com, and this is another in my series, my Q&A, my Circling Q&A series. And let me read the question. We'll see what happens. So this is a bit of a longer question. I'm just going to read through it, and I'll have a response. So the question is, how do you circle with people who show up to circle but don't appear to actually want connection? For example, they don't explicitly reveal and they don't appear to actively seek to know another's experience. This manifests as silence unless they are specifically engaged. This manifests in their refuting any tentative projections like, you seem cautious, does that fit? And it manifests as in their not really revealing of their experience. For example, for the query, how is that for you? They respond by describing or observing something external to them. My pattern is to start to try and draw them out with skillful projection, asking them about their experience or sharing how it is for me, but then I get frustrated and give up, and I end up ignoring them. This is very unsatisfactory for me. Let's just let that land for a moment. Okay. How do you circle with people who show up to circle but don't seem to actually want to circle? So I love this question. I think there's a number of important facets around this, and let's see what we can get into. So I think there's two parts to this. There's understanding the person and their experience and being able to work with that, and then there's how I'm actually relating to that person. And both of those things find ways to make it easier for me, and it can make sense why things are maybe difficult for me. So first, the person and their experience. This is not an uncommon experience. I think there are two types of people that this could apply to. I think she's referring more to one than the other, but I feel inspired to talk about both. So the first is one that maybe I can actually identify with. I chuckled a bit when I read this question because I can be this person who shows up to circling or to some other connection kind of event or workshop, and then I'm completely shut down. I don't want to touch anyone. I don't want to get close to anyone. People ask me questions and I'm just totally shut down. I'm not having any of it. I get irritated. I'm cautious, all that stuff. And with this kind of person, like myself, I think it's important to recognize that there are people out there, maybe a lot of people, who, for whatever reason, connection is something that is both highly sought after and something that is fraught with a lot of peril. It's something that I long for and something that I'm terrified by. It's something that I've had a lot of success and a lot of nourishment from, and it's also something that I've had a lot of pain with. And so I do have a lot of mixed experiences when I go to connection-oriented, authentic relating, circling kinds of events, and people want to connect all over me. And I could go into why I have trouble with that, but I don't know that that's so important. Just to say that there is a degree to which I find some things from people to be threatening to my sense of safety. That makes it hard for me to stay open with them and has me want to defend myself, protect myself. And sometimes that stuff comes from my childhood. Sometimes I'm just sensitive, and I can pick up on, because I needed to be sensitive to other people's intentions growing up, I'm extra sensitive to people's intentions in these kinds of events and spaces. And so sometimes people will enact care because they feel care, but also because it is protecting their sense of self, or because they're so distressed when they see someone else in distress that is too much for them to be with. There's some way in which they are bringing care to another person to take care of themselves, but they're not actually able to, they're not aware of that. They're not able to recognize that. And in some ways, if they're bringing it towards me, there's a way in which I feel missed by their expression of care, because they're relating to me as maybe someone who needs to be rescued, or they're relating to me with a certain urgency that has them not actually be able to attune to me. And so there's a way in which my younger self, I feel sort of unsafe and threatened, and so I want to push them away, and just to protect myself, just so I can feel safe. So with these kinds of people, I think it's just important to have some compassion, and it's important to attune and pay attention to, oh, maybe this person actually, like, they want to be here, but also part of them is having a hard time, and can I attune to that and maybe give them more space? And that requires something else, but I'm gonna save that for the third part. So the second kind of person is, and these may overlap, the second kind of person is a person who they want connection, they want to do this circling thing or this authentic relating thing that they've maybe don't have much experience with, and they just, for whatever reason, they're just totally disconnected from their bodies. They're disconnected from their experience. The clue, what I read, was the example of when you ask, how is that for you? And they respond by describing or observing something external to them. So there's a lot of people who were just, a lot of people who just don't know what's going on in their bodies. It either never clued into them, or maybe it was some defense mechanism from their childhood where it wasn't safe to feel their bodies, or it was too much, so they disassociate from their bodies. And it's actually, it creates some level of safety or orientation to have to be aware of what's going on around them. Or they project their feelings because they're not feeling inward, they're feeling out there, and they project their feeling onto objects, they project their feelings onto situations, they project their feelings onto their perceptions, and some people actually have their perceptions and their emotions kind of fused together. And so when you ask them how they're feeling, they will describe something that's going on in the world, or the way they're seeing something, because to them that is how they're feeling. And what I imagine is that when they share that perception of the external world, they feel something that goes along with that, like the flavor or the color or something, but it's so much in the background of their awareness that they couldn't actually identify that they're feeling something. So it's just, the way I like to look at it is when they describe something external, it is their best attempt to identify what they're feeling. And so for these kinds of people, one, again, to just have some compassion, some understanding, it's like they're not trying to be difficult. They're not trying to be a pain in your ass, probably. But they actually don't know how to connect with themselves, and they don't know how to identify what they're feeling, or they think they're identifying what they're feeling, but they're not actually aware of what's actually going on. So having patience, but also in those cases, helping them bring their attention more inward, and not from a place, and so this is important, not from a place of trying to make them wrong, of like, oh, you're wrong for not being able to feel what you're feeling, and I'm going to subtly shame you into doing it the right way. But actually being like, okay, there's some wisdom to you not knowing what you're feeling or not expressing what you're feeling. There's something right about that, and can I express that? Can I just come with that extending that regard that your experience is real and valid for you, even if I don't get it, even if I don't like it, even if I don't agree with it? Can I respect that and honor that, and be interested in what's going on the inside? So one move that I like to use is if I ask someone how they're feeling and they describe something external, I might say, cool. And when you see it that way, or when that's happening, what's going on the inside? Or is there an emotion that goes with that? And to just ask them, or, do you notice are there any sensations that come along? If you can just, so that's happening out there. And I'm just curious, like, what's going on in here? If there is something going on here, like, do you get tight anywhere? And this can verge into coaching, and there's a whole other conversation about the intersection of coaching and circling. But I justify it to myself through my goal in circling is to get more present. This is about being more here together. And so part of my roles as a facilitator is to help other people get more present sometimes, while not, be careful about this, while not making them wrong for not being present. So not pushing people to have an experience different than they're having, but actually to help them include another aspect of their experience. So those are the two kinds of people: the person who's just so maybe traumatized, or just having some early childhood stuff, or some attachment stuff, maybe some avoidant attachment. If you're into attachment theory, the avoidant type can be very wary of connection, but also want it. There's all sorts of different theories about this, but the people who are they just shut down, they want it, but they're terrified of it. And then the people who are just not aware of their own experience. They're not revealing their experience because they're not aware of their experience. They're not asking questions because their attention has been trained. They've learned to put their attention on different kinds of things, and to just be interested in that and curious about that and accepting of that, and see what happens with your own curiosity when you can allow them to have their experience. And so what I've been saying kind of bridges into the other part of it, which is, so there's them having their experience, and then there's how are you relating to them having their experience. And I've mentioned some of these things, like are you making them wrong in some way? Do you have an unspoken expectation of how they should be? Do you have is there maybe a ground rule or an agreement that is just sort of implicit and everyone else seems to get, but is not obvious to this other person, and maybe it requires some context setting at the beginning, this is one thing we're doing, we're practicing feeling our bodies, for instance. Do you have expectations that maybe are appropriate and can be put into the context setting of the circle? Or do you have expectations that maybe aren't appropriate, that aren't reasonable? Maybe you have and when I say expectations, do you have a should? This person should be away differently than they are. So to be aware of your expectations of them, and then to also to be aware of your expectations of yourself. Are you judging yourself for not being able to get through to them, to not be able to penetrate through their defenses? It's just word to the wise, probably if you're trying to penetrate through someone's defenses, probably don't do that. It's not worth it. And are you making yourself wrong? Are you holding a bar too high, or taking it personally that they're not opening up or they're not having a good experience, and making that mean that you're not a good enough facilitator? And the other thing is and it sort of comes back to the first thing about when people try and express care, but it's not coming from a fully owned place. Am I offering care towards you and attention from a grounded place where I'm rooted in my body, and I'm at ease, I'm aware of my experience, and okay, whatever happens, and I'm unattached? Or am I offering care from a forward place where I'm not aware of myself, and where I'm unconsciously maybe using my care for you, trying to rescue you or save you or offer you help or give you a good experience, so that I don't have to feel the distress or the helplessness of you having an experience over there that I don't have control over? And so part of the quote-unquote solution is bringing my attention back into my body and actually being aware of how am I impacting, how is this, whatever's going on for them, how is that impacting me? And to get in touch is is there a place where I feel helpless? Is there a place where I feel distress? Is there an uncomfortable sensation that I could actually be with and maybe even share and ask for impact? I think there's a lot more to this, but I think there's also a lot in what I said, so I'm going to just stop there. And let me know if this was helpful. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this brings up more questions for you. Let me know if you disagree with something that I shared. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to make more of these videos too, so definitely bring me your questions. Put them in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love it if you hit subscribe, and I think there's a little bell icon thingy you'll get notifications. I don't actually, to be honest, I never hit the bell icon. I just, I'll go to the channels when I'm ready to go to them. But, if you want to see more of these videos, hit subscribe, hit like if you like the video, hit dislike if you dislike the video. Feel free to share it. All that marketing stuff that I'm supposed to say. I think there's a link in the comments to my Facebook group and my email list. So if you want to get information about more of these videos or some of the mini workshops that I run or some of my other offerings or my podcast or all that other jazz, check that out. Okay. I said a lot of things. I probably went over a lot of time. That was a lot of time. I hope this was helpful. And I enjoyed it at least. So that's all that matters, right? Take care, and until next time, signing off.